There we go. That's YouTube. So that should be going. Yep, okay. Alright, YouTube is back up. Let me grab the link for the people that were in the YouTube chat. Okay, sorry about that. My internet's been kind of spotty recently. I expect it's because of all the snow. The infrastructure around here is not really built for it, and we've had a lot of snow coming down recently, and I think that it's like fucking with stuff, because it's been really bad recently, and I have a good internet plan, so I don't think it's just getting throttled because of usage. Alright, have you heard of Project Dragon, the voxel game that got cancelled? I love how they designed their voxels. They had such cool 3D voxels due to the rounded edges and 3D cracks in the meshes. I haven't seen that, but it reminds me a little bit of Sky Saga, just from like a description. Let's see, I'm gonna look up a picture. Huh, that does look really pretty. Yeah, that's really pretty, wow. Okay, I like how fuzzy it looks. That's super neat. This says follower goal. Oh yeah, our fancy every 10 followers auto goal from Twitch. I don't know why it does that, but it does, and it's, you know, it's fine. But yeah, so, where was I before I got super sidetracked? Oh yeah, so my first experience with like, programming was because I wanted to mod Minecraft, but by the time I actually figured out how to do stuff, I'd wanted to create my own projects. But I really like voxels, and I really wanted to make a voxel game anyways, so I ended up creating my own because I became very aware of how shit Minecraft's system was. Set a real goal, like 1,000 or something? I guess I could. Hey there, Hikarius, how you doing? Can I set the goal? How do I set the goal? I don't know where you do that. It's just like somewhere. Hold on, set another one. Ah, yes, alright, let's not set an auto goal, and let's... I can't set a goal. What? Why? I turned off set auto goal, and then it's just, like, still grayed out. Twitch is a real thing, you know? It really likes to work, technically. Let me set the goal. Alright, fine. We can have our auto goal, I guess. I can't change it. After like 3 years, I finally understand how Vulkan works, but now I'm dreading actually doing some work with it. Yeah, it's... Vulkan is a machine, for sure. I really like it, but I also don't like touching it. Whenever I go see it, and like have to work on it, I'm like, oh, fuck. You were so back. Yep, we are hopefully back up. Back live again. Are there people back on YouTube? A couple, okay. Well, feel free to go to Twitch if you want to, or stay on Twitch if you already moved. The nice thing about Twitch is it doesn't create a new stream URL when the stream stops, which means that I can actually come back. Can I share a link to the image of Project Dragon I was thinking of? Oh wait, where did that go? If not, I fully get it. Yeah, of course, go ahead. If it gets blocked, I'll let it through, just, yeah. My own internet also had issues, so it wasn't just you. Yeah, I think it's probably the ISP. I've been having a lot of, like, really shit internet service recently, like, intermittently. I'll just go down to, like, 1 megabit per second. I assume there's, like, snow fucking with the internet lines at some point. I remember wanting, before I wanted to make a Minecraft mod, I initially learned programming to mod Minecraft. Problem was that I learned JavaScript instead of Java. No! I remember wanting, before I wanted to make a Minecraft mod too, I never understood it before, but after having made one, wait, hold on. Made almost everything from C, Arduino to big JavaScript scrap apps, and now Golang. I now have time to make a mod for old Minecraft beta. Are you making mods for... Oh my god, wait, you're on the Better Than Adventure Discord, aren't you? You've been making mods for Better Than Adventure, right? I'm not crazy? Are the ears bigger? No, they're the same ears. I don't know, maybe they grew. Yeah, they are the same. Let's see, devs reveal now scrapped is the second image. Let's take a look at that. GameDeveloper.com, isn't that? Yeah, that's Gamma Sutra, they changed their name, right? Oh, wow, that's real pretty. Hold on, let me pull that up. It's really low fucking resolution, but sure, well... It looks like concept art. Like, it doesn't look like it was actual, like, in-engine art, but if you like this, definitely go take a look at Sky Saga. I don't think it looks as pretty as this concept art, but it had a really beautiful style. And yeah, this looks absolutely gorgeous. I love it. I'm actually gonna, boop, save that. It's really pretty. You're the crazy one that tried to port Computercraft to BTA? Oh my god, okay. I haven't seen that, but that's insane. Yeah, my first Minecraft mod that I finally made after years was actually for BTA. It was just to restore the old food behavior because it kind of really bothered me that they changed it without adding a game rule to bring it back. But yeah, that was, it felt like it really went all full circle because I never thought I was going to make a Minecraft mod because I thought I moved on, but BTA really captured my interest and I've been really enjoying just playing with it. And then, like, you know, that change happened and I was like, well, fuck it. I've been a programmer for like 8 years. If I can't figure out how to change some maximum stack sizes, then I don't know what I'm doing. And so I learned the modding tech and quickly made a mod. And it was super simple, but I felt really accomplished because of it. Am I going to do a video on optimization? Yeah, probably at some point. I'm kind of woefully behind schedule. My next two, I already have my next two videos planned out. I want to make a video on meshing. I'm trying to think. I think it's, I want to do mesh optimizations. Like, I want to do a video on how to do some more optimizations like vertex pulling and improving the vertex format itself, or I guess in this case the face buffer format. Talk about different methods with that. Basically give like a rundown on how like rasterized meshes can be optimized. And then my third video, I think, is on actual like level of detail stuff. But I haven't started working on either of them because I got really sidetracked by starting a company. But that is the goal. I'm hoping that I'll have some more time to work on that relatively soon. You know, before BTA food stacking just didn't exist, yeah, no, I do know. That's specifically why I did it. Like, I really liked the beta food stacking logic, like, where foods just, like, didn't stack at all. And then they changed it in 7.2 so that food does stack a little bit, and it kind of really fucked with my brain. I like it. I like the inventory management issue of having to handle, like, yourself with less food. And they added a game rule to let you instant heal again, but they didn't add a game rule to lower the stack sizes, which was kind of like, that it just bothers me. So I ended up making a mod that just brings the stack sizes back down to how they were in 7.1. What are those little dark colored lines running through the terrain? They are just decoration right now, but yeah, they're supposed to just be like strange alien gunk, basically. I don't know if they're gonna be in the final project. They were just like me messing around. They're also me messing around with like, what's it called? River generation, but I didn't actually have water. You didn't have level of detail right yet. Reverse Doctrine 64 based depth levels for LOD. Yeah, I don't have LOD yet. Oh my god, the game is crunching. It really does not like rendering all those leaves. Okay. Bring back the old. I did understand going up to 64 foods. Yeah? You like the 64 stack? I mean, like, I think it's something. I feel like the lower stack sizes made the game more interesting. I like that inventory management in beta Minecraft was a design decision, whereas in modern it feels like it's just a fuck up, you know? Like in modern Minecraft, it's like, well, we only have this big inventory because we're afraid of change, but no mechanics actually interplay interestingly with that. Like, sure, you can collect less random blocks, but there's never a meaningful decision of, do I want to carry 1 stack of 64 steak or 2 stacks of 64 steak? Because it's like, you don't need more than 1 stack of 64 steak. It's just a fixed cost that you have to bring food with you, which makes it not a decision. But in, like, beta, you had to choose how many inventory slots precisely you were going to sacrifice to being able to heal. And that made it an interesting decision, because you had to counteract how much, like, if you wanted to be more safe, you could carry less stuff, and if you wanted to carry more stuff, you had to be more careful, which I thought was a lot more interesting, personally. Let me share an awesome paper I found about 64-bit sparse voxel trees. I intend to implement it myself. Ooh, okay. Yeah, I'll take a look at that after the stream. That seems pretty neat. I wonder if it'll work with rasterization. It seems fairly ray trace oriented. Do you have biomes yet? I would be interested in learning more about that. I technically do. This is the only biome that's enabled right now. Currently the way the biomes work is just each biome is added to a registry with an identifier, and it has placement parameters for temperature and humidity. Effectively, the map generator generates like a random swatch of temperature and humidity, and then I convert all the biome positions into a Voronoi diagram to decide which biome to select, based on what's closest to the temperature and humidity that's in a specific position. And then you specify the blocks that make up the ground. You can specify strata, which are effectively just like extra layers of like blocks that exist. So that's effectively how the sides of mountains are cobblestone instead of grass or just stone. And that's also how these stripies get in here. That's this one, this strata. And then you also specify the noise somewhere. Yeah, noise, biome noise, which determines how it generates. A game made in TS? So, kind of. Wait, hold on. There's so many words. I'm gonna quickly read chat in order. Hell yeah, time to live vicariously through talented graphic programmers while I write Python. Oh man. I had to do some Python stuff for school recently, and it reminded me of all the reasons that I hate Python. List comprehensions are genuinely the worst syntax for anything I've ever seen. So have fun with that. Too many stone types and random other one-off items that you don't want filling your inventory in New Minecraft. Yeah, that's something that I want to address in my game. I want to have all equivalent blocks, like all the different types of like stone bricks and all the different like shapes of wood, like fences or doors or whatever, effectively just be one stack in your inventory, and you can hot swap how they're placed. So it's kind of more like a material rather than a specific item that you have in a stack. Oh, okay, ray marching, sorry, yeah, I misread that. Okay, a game in TS and then C++ Lua TypeScript in the same place. Okay, I'm gonna address that all at once. So the Lua is deprecated, it doesn't exist anymore. There are Lua files, none of them are run. This engine used to use Lua as a modding API, it now no longer does because I hate Lua. The engine itself is written in C++. All of this that you're seeing right now is C++ rendered and like generated. However, it has a modding API which uses V8, which is Chrome's JavaScript runtime engine, which means that all of the content in the game is defined using TypeScript, and in the future WebAssembly, so you'll be able to mod in whatever language that you want. But so right now, what's happening is this is a file, it's biome.ts, it's part of a mod, and it's parsed at the beginning of the game. The game exposes these registries, biome, item, structure, etc., and those are actually defined in native code. And so when I go biome.add in here, it calls this biome thing, which is part of this Zepha module in C++. So you can see that I bind this module export biome to this thing called a biome atlas. And the biome atlas is a interface that gives JavaScript functionality to stuff. So basically, this is all a bunch of stuff to bind JavaScript like variables and stuff to C++. And then there's a native biome atlas that's all in C++ that's actually used when generating stuff. I have to make voxel terrain in Python as the company had already made half their solution in it. Oh no. Yeah, that's gonna hit some performance, yeah, that's a problem. Ad on the best part, oh no, I'm sorry. Twitch's ads are so infuriating. There's like no actual good way to turn them off. Like if I turn them off for mid-rolls, then it puts them on the pre-rolls, which means that people show up and then they leave immediately because they get like a 2-minute ad before seeing the stream. And if I keep it lower than this, like I have it literally at the lowest setting it can be to disable the pre-roll ads. It's really bad. I guess I'd recommend going over to YouTube if you want to see less ads. I'm pretty sure it's a bit nicer about that. How heavy is V8 for the memory and CPU usage? Oh, actually, also, if you do want to like re-listen to what I just said, YouTube does have a rewind feature. The lowest setting it can be for now. Are you saying I'm gonna be evil, or are you saying that Twitch is gonna raise it? Because I feel like one of those is more likely than the other. How heavy is V8 for the memory and CPU usage? Relatively small. I think V8 uses about 150 megabytes flat, and then obviously the more JavaScript stuff you have, the higher that's going to be. But because pretty much everything is just defined in registries and then stored in native code, there's not very much heap allocated in V8 right now. Like there's vanishingly few bits of like the game that are actually stored within JavaScript on its own. So it uses very little memory. If you used a bunch of stuff, like if you were storing stuff in the JavaScript mod code, then obviously that would take up more memory, but like same goes for any script language, right? And then for CPU usage, it's really low. It's a lot more efficient than Lua. This performance hiccup that I'm having right now is actually native code. It's not V8. It's just that I wrote something stupid. YouTube also lets uBlock origin work. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't be encouraging that because I do technically make a pittance of money from the ads, but go for it. I don't care. Let's see. Yeah, they probably will raise it. I mean, they already raised it. Like, oh, it's so annoying. My YouTube chat is broken? Really? Hold on. Let me see really quick. You're right. Okay, hold on. Let me just restart the chat window real quick. Where is it? Cut that. Put it back in. Hopefully that works. There we go. Okay, YouTube chat should be back. Sorry. Oh no, yeah, I did miss a bunch of stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Please have spawning rules located in your game. What do you... Oh, like actually knowing how things spawn. I know exactly why you're sad about that. I see your messages, at least. I think the stream delay is quite high at the moment. Damn rip Lua, my first language. I'm unsure if YouTube chat works anymore. Yeah, YouTube chat is apparently kind of flaky. I think it's because the YouTube stream died and then it didn't pick up the new stream. But hopefully it should be good now. So I don't actually hate Lua on a fundamental level. Like, I think the language itself is fine. I just think the tooling for it is really fucking bad. Like, the fact that the only high-performance Lua interpreter is LuaJIT, and it's basically been stuck in limbo for the past, like, 4 years of not being updated is really fucked up. Like, I like the language, and that's why I initially made this game with the language in mind. But I don't want to shackle myself to something that's actively atrophying, because, like, in 10 years, if LuaJIT's now 14 years out of date, I don't know what that's gonna do, right? And hey, at least with using V8, I can create, like, you can just use the Lua, I think it's called Luau or something, but there's a Lua interpreter in JavaScript that you can compile to WebAssembly, and then you can write mods in Lua for this engine, which is super weird, but really cool, honestly. WASM sounds great, to be honest. Yeah, I really like WebAssembly. I think it's such an interesting technology, and I really wanted to use it, because it just feels like it solves so many problems. Like, so many people, like, don't want to learn modding languages because they're typically not very good languages. Like, a lot of people don't want to learn Lua because Lua is quite constrained. A lot of people don't want to learn JavaScript because it's JavaScript, but with V8 you can get the best of all worlds because you can let anyone use whatever language they want as long as there's bindings for it. Do you really need an update for LuaJIT? I mean, not at present, but there's already features that LuaJIT doesn't support, like the bitwise operators. And if I'm gonna keep using a system that I know for a fact is never going to get updated, that just seems like a not very forward-thinking idea. Like, I want this project to be able to exist for a long time, and Like, choosing to use technology that I already know isn't maintained just feels like a bad decision for that. Hey there, Japio. Hey there, Smorty. How you guys doing? My new favorite language is Haxe. Its most popular language, its most popular game is Friday Night Funkin'. The language itself compiles to like 15 plus other languages. I've heard really good things about it. I've not seen anything about it other than the fact that there's currently a JavaScript operator proposal for adding pipe operators, and apparently the syntax they're going for is the same as Haxe, where you do a pipe and then you have like a placeholder, which refers to the value on the left of the pipe. And that seems really cool, and I really want it to exist. Does Haxe compile to WebAssembly? I've been kind of on a functional programming kick recently, and I would actually really like to program my mods for this project in functional programming if there's a nice language that compiles to WASM that like works very nicely and is ergonomic. Because that's kind of the thing, is I feel like most functional programming languages are really unergonomic. How's it called? I thought I heard Luau, which is a dialect of Roblox. Faster than normal Lua, but fully detached. Okay, then no, I guess it's not that. Is the stream glitching out? I don't think so. I don't see any more dropped frames. Is anyone else having weird stream issues? I don't know if it's called Luau. Hold on. Java or Rasm Lua. Okay, it's literally just called WebAssembly Lua. But yeah, there's a lot of projects that let you run Lua in WASM. But yeah, so as per usual, I've spent the first 40 minutes of this stream not programming at all. Hydrate, okay. I also missed your hydrate at the beginning. Oh, you think it's my PC? It happened when loading lots of chunks? That might be true. The chunk gen has been incredibly slow since I added the trees. I think it really does not like meshing all of the leaf blocks for some reason. I need to look into that, but I'll try and not fly around too much. I just made a Blender exporter that exports animations from Blender to open formats. Oh, cool. How hard was V8 to figure out and stuff? It was a lot. It was a lot. I'm not gonna pretend it was easy. There's hardly any documentation. When you Google stuff about V8, more often than not, you find questions about how V8 works in the context of Chrome. As in, like, how do you do certain low-level things in JavaScript that interop with V8? Not how do you implement V8 into something else. The Google documentation is basically just function signatures, and that's it. Like, here, let me look at, like, V8 node source. Like, let's take a look at these V8 docs real quick. So let's suffer briefly. Let's Google set synthetic module export and see what it does. Oh, this one actually has a description. Okay, but this is the extent of the description. Let's go look at something else. Let's go look at, what about get function? Oh my god, we're so lucky. These actually have descriptions. I swear to god, I'm not crazy. Most of these just don't have descriptions. What about get private name? Okay. Oh wait, hold on. No, that's me. V8 private 4 API. How do these actually have descriptions? What the fuck? Okay, a lot of V8 stuff, I'm gonna say this very vaguely because apparently I'm failing, is just not documented outside of the function signatures, and it's really annoying. But yeah, like, it's not... The actual API isn't that crazy. There's just a lot of things that are really hard to understand. Like I just recently made stack traces render, and if I go over to like the script environment, the code for that was relatively simple. I have to evaluate the module, and then if I get the error status, then I see, oh, I have to call getException. Then if the exception's an object, then I grab the stack property out of it and I print it out. Otherwise, I just print out the string. and then I just throw a runtime error. That sounds easy enough. There's no documentation on that. So like I had to go and dig that up myself. I had to figure out everything myself with basically no guidance. And the only reference example that Google has for implementing V8 is just Chrome itself, which is not very nice to look at if you're like trying to understand how the library works. It's the same thing for me if I don't close Discord when I pass 1 minute 30 and speaking with people. Oh, you pass 1 hour 30 minutes speaking with people instead of just starting your job. I used to do work in Discord calls, and now I just don't, because I realize that if I'm in a Discord call talking, I get shit all done. Hi, what are you working on right now? By the way, there are some new commits by Mike in the Luajit repo recently. Oh, that's exciting. Okay. Well, maybe that project isn't dead, but it was dead for a long time. I am content with my decision to move to V8, though. I like having the flexibility, I like that the runtime is just a lot faster, and I like the ability to use different languages. Seeing C++ scares me for having to learn it in uni. I honestly think that C++ is a really nice language. I know that that's like a crazy hot take, but I think you'll like it if you like just like learning low-level stuff. V8 docs look like FFmpeg's C API docs, something terrible that makes you regret your choice of wanting to manually decode compressed audio into a raw PCM. I will not tolerate FFmpeg slander. That project is the modern-day equivalent of the pyramids in Egypt. Bad code documentation. It's so hard. Like, it's just like, okay. How, as a programmer, do you write a tool for others to use that has no documentation at all? Like, I've been recently working with something, and I'm not going to name it because the developer is actually seems like a really nice person, and I don't want to be a bitch. But I've been working with some tool recently that is entirely just a tool for other like people to work in. And the entire thing has basically no docs on most of its functionality, and none of it is immediately apparent. It's all just like strange and obscure. And it's driving me crazy. I'm like, why would you make something like this? Like, just explain how your thing works. No Talks is called This is Sparta. C++ is beautiful, but also dangerous. Yeah, I agree. I like dangerous and beautiful things. I'm gonna go get some water. Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back. Okay. Does your engine have 2D or 3D chunks? It is 3D chunks because the world has infinite height. For FFmpeg, it's easy to find people explaining how to decode video. Not for audio if you're not an expert. Time to reverse engineer FFmpeg in some GitHub projects. Oh god, yeah. Every time I want to do something with FFmpeg, I just go to Stack Overflow and I go, how to do this FFmpeg? Because it's one of those tools that I feel like you look at and it just like shatters your brain into a million pieces. Does the world have infinite depth? Yes, it does. Or at least to the point that the chunks start breaking. I've actually got quite a bit of floating point inaccuracy right now because I just haven't actually optimized any of that. I could do stuff that Minecraft does, where it effectively stores everything as a floating point offset to an integer coordinate, and that would make everything a lot better. But I haven't yet. And so if I go like TP, let's say 50,100, 0, and we just wait for the chunks to generate, you'll see it's quite funky. Just give it a sec. It's taking its sweet time. There we go, okay. If I start wandering, it's actually fine except for the ray. Oh, there's some seams, yeah. There's a lot of ray casting issues because the rays are just like subsequent iterations of really small floating point values. Let's try going a bit further. Let's go TP 500,000. Oh, I'm in the ground. LLM is at the limit of understanding FFmpeg. Sometimes they completely invent some new API. I feel like this is a really weird benchmark because AI sucks ass, but I feel like if something is too complicated to understand, for AI to understand, and it's also popular, that's an indicator of something wrong. True, but with the right incantations, you could probably get FFmpeg to open a portal in time or something. The selection seems to be really off at times. Yeah, that's because I'm super far in the distance. Everything's all scrunkly. And because the rotation of the camera is a quaternion, it also causes the camera to tilt really funky at times. Like, you can... look at the selection. It's, like, only in these directions. But, like, notice how the camera is, like, twitching kind of weird? What if I go to 5 million? The world is breaking apart. I'm actually curious at what distance I'd have to go for, like, the generation to break. I'm using an external library for MapGen, or at least for noise generation, so there's not actually anything I can do if the floating point inaccuracies get bad for it, but it seems like it's quite robust at handling it, given that I'm currently 5 million blocks out, and it's still a-okay generation-wise. I can't really say the same for the rendering and the camera. I'm moving my mouse completely straight right now. It does not like it. Oh, look at the trees wobbling. This is like some PS2 era distortion. Wow. Floating point errors, your beloved. Okay, I need to see how much further we can go. 5 billion. The world is breaking apart. It does look really cool. There's like a weird thing where I feel like a shader that does this sort of thing would be really neat to see. But like, yeah, it's, oh my god. Whoa. Oh wow, okay, hold on. Oh fuck. I physically cannot move left or right. I'm holding right now and I'm moving forward. Look at the blocks. Oh wow. Is the terrain busted? The terrain still seems to be generating properly. That is incredibly impressive. The frustum culling's also fucked. Can I sprint and get to the left or right? Barely. Ship it. Which way to the farlands? I don't know if this has farlands. Like, it has visual farlands for sure, because this is all scrambly. But it looks like the generation just is not farlandsing. Which is slightly disappointing, actually. I mean, good for me, but also boring. I want there to be some shitty terrain. FFmpeg CLI is crazy when you need to do filtering or HLS. For me, I need to use the inner workings of FFmpeg for my audio player, so that's why I need to go deeper, and really I begin to think that there should be a blog or something. Yeah. Oh, the floating point makes stripes appear. Yeah, it's funky. It makes everything really stretchy. I'm gonna go one further. I don't think we're gonna see much of meaning if we do that, but I want to see how far I can get before it just crashes. Or we just can't see anything. Okay, so this is now, I think, 500... This is 500 million. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa, God. The crazy thing is it's impossible to really tell because I think it's rendering all askew, but if you look on the right side, where the wall is over there, I think it's still generating properly. It's just failing to render it so hard that you can't see it. I relate to the voxel terrain at this distance. Oh man. Like, look at that, all the blocks are like squished to one chunk side, because all of the floating point positions for how they render are fucked. So it's like a big wall. It's kind of like that scene in Interstellar when they go into like the black hole, or I mean the rift, and then everything's like all fucky. That scene really messed with my brain. Alright. At one point you'll discover the world just wrapped in on itself. This is like what Bedrock Edition does to the farlands? I've never gone to the farlands in Bedrock. But I'm enjoying just continually increasing this by multiples of 10. The skybox does not seem to be enjoying it, though. Whoa. Oh god, the skybox is wobbling. The illusion's fading. You can see that it's just a cube. Oh. Time to use big int or a float with 1024 bits. I'm just gonna do what Java Edition Minecraft does, which is that it stores positions as integers and then floating point offsets from them. Because then you can just have, like, effectively a projection into screen space coordinates by subtracting all of the integer positions by the player position's integer position. And then you can do all the floating point math relative to the player, and then re-add the integer offsets, and then you don't have imprecision. And I think we're at the point where terrain just is not rendering. Because, yeah, it's done meshing. The task status is gray. It's just not displaying anything. The skybox is really unhappy. Let's go back to normal land now. Wow! We're back! It's very laggy, but we're back. That was neat. Fun little adventure. I'm just gonna do what Java Edition does, no array list, that's how you get unoptimized. No, this is actually an optimized way of handling it. It's actually a really smart way of doing it. Like, just using the fact that coordinate spaces are commutative and stuff. In Bedrock, all the vertices are forced to be on an integer or even number. Really? Like, they don't have floating point positions? Are you just saying that's what happens in the farlands, or is that just how it always works? Because in the way that I do it here, I use vertex pulling. So effectively, I have a template of what each block looks like. Basically, it's like vertices for its faces relative to the world origin. And then when I render it, I take the integer position of the block in the chunk, and then I add the floating point vertex position. So all I need to do to fix the coordinate... Oh, they are floating points, but they get... Like, if you get far enough, you lose precision. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I've never really understood these bindings. It kind of lets you compile things for every language. Sort of. So effectively, so bindings can mean a lot of things. But in the V8 world, it effectively means you are... So I'll try to explain WebAssembly first. So basically, V8 is an interface from JavaScript to C, right? So it runs JavaScript, and then it has a C API for manipulating and reading data from it. And then we have C++ bindings for V8, which at that level is basically just making the C work in C++, which is really easy because C++ is a superset for the most part of C. There's a few syntactic differences and like changes with how you export modules, but for the most part it's just adding a little bit of extra structure around the C code to make it work in C++. That's one form of binding, where things are effectively already in the same language and you just need to put some stuff to stick them together. But oftentimes when people are talking about bindings, they're actually talking about WebAssembly bindings, which is different. So V8 can run JavaScript, and the JavaScript can interface directly with C++. But it can also run WebAssembly, but the WebAssembly can only interface with JavaScript. WebAssembly is a binary format, it's like traditional computer assembly, but it's sandboxed, and it's implementation general, like it doesn't matter what your CPU is. It's just a form of assembly that can be compiled into, that can be run by V8. But it's constrained to only operate with JavaScript. So any language, or at least a lot of languages, can actually build into WebAssembly. So we can even technically take Zepha, although I'm assuming there's some libraries that don't have WebAssembly builds, and you can compile it into WebAssembly, which means that you're effectively building it for this hypothetical processor, which is actually specifically V8. But then the only thing it has access to is stuff that the JavaScript has made available to it. And that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about bindings for WebAssembly. So like, for example, if I wanted to make a mod in Rust in Zepha, I could compile the Rust to WebAssembly, but then I can't actually manipulate anything on the engine from the Rust code, because the Rust code needs to be given the JavaScript functions that I've exposed to JavaScript. And so we create Rust bindings for the API by effectively creating a JavaScript library that exposes the functions in a way that Rust can understand. And then we use that library in Rust, so then we can write Rust code, which talks to the JavaScript code, and then the JavaScript code talks to the C++ code. It basically lets JavaScript be the intermediary to connect the languages together. And some people really hate that, because it means that all communication goes through JavaScript, but because the code for this project, like the actual JavaScript interface, is really low level, that hopefully shouldn't be a problem. But effectively that means that as long as you make the glue to connect the JavaScript to whatever language you want to use, then you can just write code in that language and then talk to the engine as though you're working in JavaScript. And I plan to be able to do that, or I want to be able to do that for a lot of languages. I'm not going to personally maintain all of them, because frankly, like, the modding API is already stable. If someone has some niche language they want to work in, they can just create bindings for it. It's not that hard. But I do plan on maintaining bindings for some popular languages. Like, I do want to have Rust bindings, and I might have C++ bindings, maybe. We'll see. C is the worst and best API in the world. Even Rust can't have it. Yeah, Rust does not like the C API. This would be hell if your Rust WASM could directly memory access your engine. Where would your yeah, I would not be able to have security if that was the case. It's actually really interesting creating a system like this, because V8 is safe by default. Like, it doesn't have any sort of file manipulation stuff that's accessible to it. Like, all of the file stuff that, like, browsers have, for example, is specifically programmed by the browser developers and hooked into the V8 stuff. V8 does not have access to your file system. But I want limited file system access for, like, saving structures and stuff, right? So I created this entire file system library, which we can look at here. And it's honestly really difficult to try and do this in a way that, like, makes it safe. Like, this entire getSystemPath function is dedicated to making sure that you can't request a path that would bring you outside of the mod directory via symlinks or any sort of other shenanigans. And all of the paths are all virtual. Like, you never actually get access to the system path. So, like, if I look at fs in a TypeScript file, if we go look at some of this code, you can see all of these paths, they're prefixed with, like, a protocol, like HTTP, and then they have a mod identifier, and then the actual subdirectory within that is determined by the mod's config. It basically says where it wants the actual directory for the like the data folder for this mod. But then you also, that has to also be within its own directory. Like, it doesn't let you say, oh, my data folder is the root directory, because then you could just break out very easily, right? Yeah, it avoids Windows and Unix path differences. It's always forward slashes. I do think I do just convert backslashes to forward slashes in the file system code, but, like, yeah, you're supposed to write it with forward slashes, and it will not type validate if you do it with backslashes or anything. It wants forward slashes. But yeah, so these paths are all virtual, and then internally on the C++ side, we convert them into native paths and then read the files and do whatever. And yeah, it was really scary to write this code because, you know, that is actually accessing underlying operating system resources, but I'm relatively sure that it's safe, and I'm going to be testing it very intensely, you know, so. Will mods be able to interact with other mods? Yes. I've already got some stuff like that. If I bring up an example, the player mod exports this class player, and then it generates type definitions, and then the default mod, hold on, if I search import player, yeah, the default mod imports the player using this mod identifier. You can see that it's also using the mod name, and then it actually accesses it. So if I go find where it's used, that's not what I wanted. Go to references. Yeah, over here I actually instantiate a player using that type. But yeah, you can have shared bindings. What messages am I missing? What kind of C++ programmer are you? Are you a modern one that uses latest features, or a C programmer but wanting C with classes minus heritage, or okay, so how do I answer this? When I first learned C++, I learned it based on old guides that treated it like C. And so when I first wrote code, I used a lot of raw pointers everywhere, and it was terrible. Then I learned that smart pointers existed and became that type of person where I use smart pointers everywhere. And then I realized that's also shit because it heap allocates everything and cache locality sucks. And now I think I've got this kind of a mixture of that and actual stack semantics. Like I try to use references when I can. I write a lot of abstractions to keep things secure, but or like memory safe, but also efficient. I hope that the way I write code is pretty good. We'll see. But yeah, I think that I tend towards more modern C++ features, for sure. Why use V8 in the first place? Are you running V8 in your project or your project in V8? I'm running V8 in my project. The project is C++, and I've got V8 running inside of it. And it is for the purpose of allowing you to mod in JavaScript or WebAssembly or whatever. It's basically to expose a sandboxed modding API that can add content to the game without having any underlying system access, and can be done in whatever language you want. Oh my god, I feel like I've been rambling for so long, and I haven't done anything that I'm supposed to. So I guess, should we do a few things that I'm actually supposed to do? So yeah, let's take a look at the structure system really quick. So, as you saw, last time I was working on the project, I got tree structures running. No, I shouldn't actually do work. Did I have tech issues? Tech issues with what? Like, did something just break? Yap streamer. I don't think something broke, unless I'm crazy. So if I go structure system, okay, fine, yes, please explain structure system. All right, if I generate a path here, oh, interesting, all these structures are fucked because they've got voids in them. Okay, well, disregard, oh yes, I did have tech issues. Hold on, I'm gonna quickly structure load Zeus path S. This is really slow. Okay, something is wrong. There we go. Structure save. Structure load Zeus path T. Structure save. Structure load Zeus path R. Structure save. I'm basically, I changed the identifier for these void blocks and it broke a bunch of stuff, so I'm just re-saving them. Structure. Stream die again? Ah! Am I back? Am I... Hello? Am I here? Am I alive? Is the stream still up? I can't actually see... Oh. Okay. Hello? Is anyone here? Am I still alive? Let's see. Twitch is back. Is YouTube back? Are we alive on YouTube again? Yes, okay. Alright, cool. My ISP is having a fucking field day today. Sorry, guys. I promise you it's not my own doing. I actually have a really reliable internet connection. And I'm not using Restream, I'm actually self-simulcasting. So like everything is just coming directly from my machine, and my machine and my connection are both powerful enough for this. It's just, I guess the like lines are fucked up outside. Yeah, I don't know. My city that I live in, I'm in like southern Canada, and we have no setup for the winter. The last week it's been really snowy and the roads have just been like drifting on ice. There's really no infrastructure here for handling the weather, and so things have been a little bit funky. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. I'm just gonna ignore the Twitch chat right now. Hey Static Void, how you doing? Hey Note Clip. Are we not back? Is it broken again? Oh, okay, I think we're good. Not much, I've mostly been yapping for the past like hour and a half instead of actually doing stuff and dealing with very jank internet issues, but you know, we're getting there. We're fine. The ears timer is gone. I'm free. Oh my god. Yes. I can be normal again. Yeah, okay. No, Southern Canada, not California. That would be pretty funny. Yeah, a bit different. But you know, like, it's funny, we're never prepared for it, but it happens every year. Like, I know we don't get much snow here. Like, it's not like we're living, you know, in the north where it's like snowy for multiple months a year. But we always get like at least a week or two of relatively like debilitating snow if you don't plow the roads. And then we don't plow the roads. And then everyone gets into car accidents. It's like, ugh. I was driving a car the other day, and I was pulling up to a stoplight, and I was going really slow, like I was going like maybe 2 kilometers an hour, right? But there was a car right ahead of me that had stopped, and I hit the brake, and the auto lock brakes just like pulsed once, and then just decided, nah, I'm good, but I was still drifting forwards. And I was like, oh my god, like I genuinely thought I was gonna get into like the slowest speed collision ever, because it just didn't stop the car, and I had to like awkwardly turn to the left so that it would just like bump some snow. And I was like, ugh, okay. It did not inspire confidence. It kind of freaked me out, to be honest. But that's not the usual car that I drive, so my car's auto-lock brakes are a lot more reliable. We sold out our plows to a northern community about 10 years ago. We got rid of them? Ah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, the ears are gone. I'm no longer being bribed to wear them, so they're gone. Southern California has the opposite of snow recently. Yeah, they're having other problems. Good old Canada. I like Canada a lot. I only know if one day I go visit Quebec, I'd die instantly. I mean, I guess you're just talking about temperature, fair enough. Can't trust ABS, it sucks at low speeds. I've never had a car that fails like that, though. Like, I was literally barely moving, and it just stopped trying. Like, and then I went and I got back in my usual car, and I was really paranoid about it. And so I like, intentionally brought myself to somewhere flat and tried, like, pressing down on the brake when it was icy. And the auto-lock brakes worked fine, and I was like, okay, so this 1-year-old car doesn't know how to stop, and my 20-year-old junker that I bought for like 7 grand does work. It was like, okay. Yeah. I'm not like extremely mad about it or anything. It's mostly just it was a scary event, and it made me realize that technology can be very unreliable in circumstances where you don't have that much need to test it very often. More software, more problems. Yeah. I guess I should never drive that newer car again. Yeah. Well, we shall see. Hopefully, my car continues functioning. But, yeah, okay. I'm so fucking sidetracked. It's hopeless. I'm never gonna actually work on anything this stream. Okay. What am I actually supposed to be doing? Let's focus up for a sec. So, the JavaScript version of the structure generator, it has the ability to spawn substructures from a structure, right? And I want to be able to do that. So... fucking Christ. Why am I yawning so much? Okay. So, we're gonna have some weird stuff where that's not gonna work. Because, let's go take a look at the structure generation. So this is the JavaScript code, and it has an array of structures. Why is that important? Because when we start up the system, we push all of the files from the structures into, like all structure files into there, which means that we actually, wait, hold on. Lived in Montreal for 2 years, went grocery shopping at -30. Oh, yeah. No, that is Celsius. Yeah, but, so we're loading all the structures that are in files into the cache so that we know what attachments can be generated. Right now in C++, we don't do that. We're actually initializing the structures statically, and then we aren't having them be like in any cache at all, which means that things like trees work fine. Like if we go to like structure.create game, so this is loading a specific tree structure, right? And it's creating it, and it's storing it somewhere, and it works fine. That's not gonna work anymore, because like that's just loading the individual structure, it doesn't have any attachments. But if we go back into the game and we try to generate like a path, we're gonna see that it's not actually gonna, it's not gonna work for this system because we need access to other structures. So if I'm here, and I go structure generate Zeus path X, and you give it a sec because, again, trees are absolutely fucking the mesh time for some reason. Wow, it's so slow. I need to fix this. This is really bad. Okay, you can see, like, this is the structure I generated, but then all of these are different structures that are generating, right? Like, this is different, this is different, this is different, this is different. And so I actually need to be able to have all of the other structure files in some sort of registry in C++, like I've kind of got them in JavaScript right now, which I don't have. And I need to have it, and I don't want to have it, because that makes everything kind of more janky and frustrating. But, you know, it is what it is. It seems like it's just what I've got to do. So I guess I'm gonna work on that. Been making a chunk generating system in my off time, and I have a question or two related to it. First, when it comes to loading chunks, do you save the chunk mesh and disable it, or just delete it? I just delete it, personally, because if it's not fast enough to generate the chunks on demand in the first place, then it's not fast enough, you know? Like, I need to be able to generate those chunks on demand when I'm entering new terrain. Caching it, well, it would save a little bit of work, creates potential, like, cache miss issue, or not cache miss, but cache invalidation issues, where, like, say a block is moved or placed when it's outside of load distance, and then I don't update the chunk properly. And also, it's one of those things where, like, the optimization doesn't need to exist because I need to support the worst case, right? It's kind of the same thing with map generation right now. Like, I want to be able to have, really far distance chunk generation, right? Or, like, chunk rendering. And so that means that I need to be able to generate those chunks on demand without saving them to memory. Otherwise, we'd end up with gigabytes of block data that just exists at all times, just so that you can see really far. But because I have to be able to handle generating mass amounts of chunks on demand at any given time, it kind of doesn't make sense for me to save any of the chunks at all. Because the worst case scenario is that I need to be able to generate them, right? And so why optimize for the best case scenario where I've already got them generated when that's going to be such a small proportion of the actual terrain? So all I'm actually planning on doing is saving the deltas of chunks, effectively just whatever blocks have changed from the generated chunks. So if you're in a world and you just break a few blocks, the only blocks that should actually be saved to disk should just be these 7 that got set to air. And then next time you load the game, it regenerates the same chunk and then superimposes the changes onto it. I'm gone again? It doesn't look gone. Are you sure? I'm very stuttery? Okay. That might be my CPU freaking out because I'm moving around. Okay, I'm there. Good. I see, so the chunk system has no need to store changes, it's not voxel-based, just raw terrain, so caching them is likely fine for the project I have in mind. Yeah, I guess so. Like, I guess my thing is, like, if you can generate the chunks fast enough that you don't need to cache them, then that's just wasted effort. But if it's slow enough that you need to sit and wait, then caching is probably a good idea. Oh my god, okay, there's so many messages! Ah! Hold on. Okay. Might just be Smarty. Alright, let's see. Okay, Zith redeemed the ears again. I'm back to being bribed by chat. Chat bribed. Okay, oh my god, okay. You also redeemed 400 bits, thank you, and you got a thing. Cool. What about version updates? Good question. You're talking about map gen, so like, the idea, like, okay, so what if you're trying to regenerate the world, and then, like, a new mod's been added and it fucks with the map generation, and now suddenly it's generating terrain that's not identical? That is where generation integrity comes in. So the idea is that because everything's already in a registry, like, everything for the map gen is defined statically, and then it is utilized in C++. And that's a constraint to make the generation fast, because I can't really run arbitrary JavaScript code on mapgen threads easily, right? So I've already got it optimized in that regard so that, like, it's all static data. And so my idea is that effectively, in addition to any deltas for whatever blocks have been changed in a chunk, I'm also going to store just a simple incrementing integer for the mapgen integrity, which is effectively what version of the game, or what version of the mods the chunks were generated in. And every time a mod is either added or removed or updated in a way that changes any of the mapgen parameters, it just creates a new number. Like, it increments the number, and then it stores all of the mapgen parameters for the new version, and then new chunks are generated with that, and then they store that number. So then effectively, when it tries to regenerate chunks that already existed, it just goes and uses the version that was used when they were initially loaded. Which just means that I have to cache the actual generation parameters for every stage in the map file, but that's a lot less memory than saving the actual chunks. This is a nice way to not store gigabytes of world. After all, if your generation is slow, that could be bad for 128 render distance. Yeah, for sure. Smarty, you could always swap over to Twitch if you're having issues with YouTube. I don't necessarily know if Twitch is gonna help, but, like, it's worth a shot. What else do we have going on here? What's with the funky UVs in some areas? It's just some shit with greedy meshing. I'm greedy meshing this stuff, and I also changed some stuff to make it basically so that I'm doing vertex pulling everywhere, and I didn't actually properly set the way that the UVs should transform based on the greedy mesh terrain. And it's just like a math issue that I haven't been asked to fix yet. It's very fixable, I just haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, it's just an issue that comes from combining greedy meshing and vertex pulling and not caring about the numbers. Oh shit, thank you for becoming a channel member, Zith. Isn't JS slowing down stuff a lot? I mean, JavaScript is slower than native code, yes, but at least for map generation, JavaScript just does a one-time definition for how the generation should work, and then it's actually executed in C++. There's not really much performance-critical JavaScript. It's all mostly just defining hooks and like events, and then also defining the types of things that the world should create. The other question I have is how to render chunks within a circular render distance. I'm confused on how to loop through a circle from the player's position. Maybe I should try a square first. The way that I would do it... now, please note that I'm not actually very sure about this either, but I would probably just create a square region, and then I would just do a range check when iterating over the square and discard any of the things that are outside of a circular distance. You need to save gen settings for each chunk. Yes, I do. But I will save the gen settings. So the gen settings are going to be static across the entire world until mods change or whatever. So effectively, when a world is first generated, it will save all the parameters for the generation along with the world file and the seed and stuff. And then that will always stay in the world file, but when you change the mods, which changes the generation, it will create a new copy of the new settings, and then new chunks will have that version associated with them. Isn't there a sampling mode that repeats? Yes, but that would require all of my textures to be powers of 2, and I don't want to constrain people to having to do that. So I actually have to manually do it, and then that gets kind of fucky. One of those things where you know how to fix it, just can't be bothered yet. I'm trying to know... Oh, yes, yeah, the UV stuff. Yep, that's effectively it. This project is basically all those. Yeah, no problem. Bounding box solution, it would make sense as an infinite world generator would require local generation for optimization. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I know this is kind of a big thing, but imagine having walking sounds and tree swaying sounds. That feels like the feels would go through the roof. That would be really cool. I don't have an audio system yet. I have no way of playing sound. I think that SDL has audio somewhere in it, and that's probably what I'll use. Yeah, it does have an audio module. So I'll probably end up doing that. But I haven't done anything with audio yet. There's no API for playing sound. There should be. It's just not been a priority, but I would really like to do that. Ario. Oh my god, okay. Right, so if we want to make this work, if we want to actually be able to have the larger structures generating in C++, then we actually do need a structure registry, which is awful and terrible. I don't want to do that. Because the frustrating thing about structures is that they're not unique, right? So, for example, I guess they could be unique. I guess there's nothing stopping them from being unique. Like, up until now, I haven't made the structure identifiers unique because I just hadn't had a reason to. And I liked the idea that you could have multiple structures just called, like, tree, and then it will randomly select the tree. But I have in the type definition the ability to specify tags on a structure. I thought. Maybe I don't. Apparently not. But I could, which would be fine. But yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I did answer the thing about language bindings earlier. It was like 40 minutes ago. Basically just bindings for a language allow you to interface with a language that you normally wouldn't be able to via an intermediary bit of glue that merges, or that allows like one language to interface with functions from another one. Okay, everyone always freaks out at the TypeScript. Okay, just hold on a minute. So the actual native code that interfaces with Vulkan is in C++. The TypeScript is the modding API, which the C++ processes using V8, which is a JavaScript engine made by Google. So the actual performance critical stuff is in C++, it's fine, don't freak out. It's just that there's TypeScript definitions for doing modding stuff. No comments in code? I have comments in code. Yeah, script for modding, yeah. There are lots of comments in code. Are you talking about specifically this file? Because this file isn't commented because it's just all placeholder nonsense. It's not actually meant to be real. Do you have to make languages specifically compatible with the bindings, or is it a cool global thing where I can even use like GDScript to make stuff with a cool project like yours? So there's some manual work required. Basically, so the modding API is in JavaScript, and technically V8 can run any form of WebAssembly, but the WebAssembly won't be able to interface with the engine unless there are bindings from JavaScript to that language. I plan to maintain some, like I want to maintain a Rust WebAssembly bindings, but if you wanted to use any arbitrary language, you'd either need to maintain or have someone maintain language bindings for that specific language. So like GDScript or Python or whatever, you'd have to get bindings for those. However, those are pretty nice to work with because they're also, like if the API that they're binding to is stable, then so are the bindings. Like as long as you're just doing an actual one-to-one binding, then if the API doesn't change on the JavaScript side, then it doesn't change on the binding side, which makes everything a lot nicer. When you get sounds added to the game, you should make it so it plays the intro music from Shadow of Israfel. Oh man. Isn't that song called Gay Activity? That feels very appropriate. Okay, so structures. They are stupid. So, I need to make it so that, not that one. Okay, there's a different one. Okay, so, right now structures are identified by a name, and we want to change that to a identifier. Are they really identified by a name though? That feels weird. Whoa, what was that little sci-fi noise that VS Code made? Hold on, do that again. Whoa. I don't know why I'm so enamored by that. That's so weird. I've never heard it do that before. Okay, sure. It goes whoop. Imagine how cool it would be to have one cool library in like C++ which supports all the languages and then it just like works. Yeah, that would be really nice. Okay, so yeah, we currently have it called name. We're gonna change this to identifier. Okay. And then we're also gonna add a tags, which is going to be a string array. Hold on. Cool, okay. So now tags are optional here. Imagine a library in C++ that supports other C++ libraries. Slander on the symbol mangling. Wait, what? What symbol mangling? Are you talking about the ligatures? Holy crap, I actually managed to catch a live view. I use your past lives as my background noise while I work on my own voxel engine. Oh, cool. I'm always very curious about like the demographic of people that watches the lives not live, because I know that it happens because I see the view count, but it's always very interesting to me Because, like, typically when I'm looking for background noise, I throw on a podcast or something. I tend to like more edited content. But that's really cool, yeah. Thanks for catching a live stream. How you doing? Why do I more thought of a barrel being tapped from that sound? Yeah, it's kind of, like, listen to it. It's just so odd. I need to not just play that sound over and over again. I'm having, like, a fixation moment. I'm just gonna ignore it. It's not real. Well, yeah, you always have to coerce types no matter what. Yeah, no, since when does it make noises? I don't know. It also makes, like, pebble sounds sometimes. I've noticed that when it's loading, it sometimes makes this really annoying, like, pebble, like, dropping sound, and it drives me insane every time it happens. I used to work at this company until, like, a week ago that had absolutely fucking insane dev tools that broke all the time, and it was just generally fucking awful. But they would often halt the entire VS Code process forever, and my, like, headphones would just be filled with this stupid rock pebble sound every 2 seconds while it was waiting for the dev tools that had crashed to finish their job. And so it would just be like, doo-doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo-doo, like, every 5 seconds. And I'd just be sitting there being like, why is this happening? Why have the dev tools crashed again? Your live streams just have a comfy music and your voice is very comfy and the vibe is so, like, outer space, outer wilds feeling. It's good. Thank you. I really like the music that I play. It's from Cobalt Core, and I recently, like, I just added some other music from Aaron Cheroff, the guy who made the Cobalt Core soundtrack. They worked on a previous game by the same studio called Sunshine Heavy Industries, which I haven't played yet, but it's on my list, because I really liked Cobalt Core. And I was listening to that OST recently, and it's also really good. But yeah, I'm glad that the streams can be comfy. I really like doing this. It's really nice to just chat with people, even though I find I often don't get all that much done. I prefer the live approach and listening to the raw videos over edited ones. Better natural interactions that way. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like the internet's become very polarized to, like, immediate feedback. Like, you don't really see people, you see, like, the precisely cut-up versions of people that have all the attention-grabbing moments and nothing else, right? And on one hand, like, it is very engaging, which is kind of the point. But on the other hand, I feel like you lose a lot of that natural human interaction through it. So I understand looking for that. Cobalt Core, the thing I asked you about like 5 times until you finally wrote them down. The OST? I also do have the music at the bottom always. I don't know if people actually look at the bottom, because I know that, like, it's just links and stuff, or I guess, like, text and stuff, but I do always put the music that I have down there. What was I talking about? There was something that I was gonna say. Oh yeah, I thought it was interesting. I was thinking this morning, weirdly, about how we're shaped by the culture that we grow up in. It was actually because I was preparing for the stream and the Little Inferno jingle, like, got stuck in my head. And I was just thinking about the fact that that is, like, such a uniquely, like, time-specific thing. Like, every generation will have those little things that just are stuck in their head because they were big at the time, right? But every generation's is different. And, like, those are also... I don't even know if it's generational. It feels like it's, like, every 3 years we get, like, an entirely new culture of in-jokes and like, popular things and references. Like, now everything's all, like, what even is popular right now? I don't even want to try and guess because I feel like I will betray how out of touch I am. But my point is that, like, it's very interesting that the language with which we use to in-joke about things that were interesting, it's so dependent on when exactly you grew up. Like, it's not like you just... Obviously, if you took 2 people that were born 100 years apart, then like they would have very different ways of speaking and very different mannerisms and stuff. But if you take two people that grew up 10 years apart, they might speak pretty similarly if they're in a formal context, but they have completely different memes, they have completely different slang, they have completely different things they remember from their childhood that were impactful to them. And it's like, it's really interesting that, you know, it's just such a culturally distinct thing in such a small amount of time. And it was weird to me because I was also thinking about how, like, the type of humor we like is so different. Like, for example, like the Little Inferno jingle, I know about that because I religiously watched the Yogscast when I was younger. And now their style of content isn't the same because the type of thing that people want to watch isn't the same, right? And I don't personally find it engaging anymore, but, like, other people do. Like, it's just what we create is so different. But it's like, it's not... I think people tend to think about it like it's, like, just evolving, as in it's getting better. And I'm not gonna say it's getting worse, but, like, it's getting different, right? Like it's kind of a strange thing where, like, if you took a newborn child and you put them in, like, a test chamber that just looked like the 70s, you know? It was perfectly like the 70s, and they grew up with 70s media and, like, 70s, like, social, like, interactions and everything. They would grow up the same as someone who was born in the 70s. Like, there's nothing about the time that changes things. It's about the culture that's developed during that time. And like, I know that doesn't sound very profound, because, like, of course it's not like the year affects, like, the way your brain develops. It's what's happening in that year. But it's interesting to think about the fact that, like, we all kind of take it as a given that we are the way we are now because we've developed to this point. But it's more so that we're the way we are now because we've mutated to this point. Like, culture doesn't necessarily go up. It just goes everywhere, you know? It goes sideways. Like, it changes, but that doesn't necessarily mean it gets better or worse. It's just different. It's very weird. So we all agree to not let Ari handle newborns. Fuck, if there was, like... if I was the head of some evil scientific research station, I would absolutely do so many tests to try and figure out how the fuck, like, the human brain works by just sticking children in, like, very particular scenarios with, like, completely fake conditions, like, just to see how they develop. I would not be a good ethical scientist. It makes me so sad that we can't do testing on, like, oh, what would happen to a human if we just put them in a room with no other humans for, like, 30 years anymore, because everyone's like, well, yeah, but that's fucking awful. And it is. Like, we should not do that. But I'm also just so curious what would happen. Like, what would happen if you just stuck a person in a room and they grew up thinking they were the only person in the universe? That's so interesting. We'll never see it, though, because, you know... Okay, yes, maybe we know what would happen, but I want to watch. I want to see it with my eyes. Let's make the Truman Show in the real world. It's interesting when one generation has an abnormal differential, like when their differences are different. I think I understand what you're meaning, yeah. You really want to watch reality TV. I just think it's like... We're all so similar in this very fundamental level. You know, like, all humans, no matter where they're from, they're exposed to culture in a way that's similar enough that there's general understandings between us. Like, we're all social creatures. We all want to be kind on a fundamental level to others because it is like a pack mentality, right? You know, like, there's a lot of things about people that no matter where you're from are the same. But, like, it's not built into our DNA, or some of it is, but, like, a lot of it isn't. It's just that no matter where you're from, we always have the same general structures that have developed, right? And it's very curious to imagine, like, or to try and think, like, I wonder what there actually is. Like, I wonder how much is truly ingrained in us, and how much is just that, like, we've all kind of co-developed in the same way, and now we don't see humans that are isolated from that existence. Man, I gotta drop out for a bit. Unfortunately, my kid isn't letting me hear this while she yells at me. I feel like I'm never gonna be able to see just one stream all the way through. I'm sorry. Well, see you around. I stream same time every week, so hopefully you'll get a chance to catch another one. There's a medieval king who did that. Stuck a child in a deserted island to see if it would grow up to speak the language of God. What happened? Did it speak the language of God? Hold on. I wonder how much evolution will change humans over some million years if we don't do the selection ourselves. Well, evolution is all selection, right? Like natural selection is just selection by the means that a species selects, right? Like, we are effectively still doing natural selection. We're just natural selecting based on a lot of very superficial traits, you know? Like, we've kind of optimized out needing to worry very much about medical issues for the most part, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But, like, our natural selection process is very different from other species on the planet, which are kind of live or die, right? But, like, it doesn't mean that we're not natural selecting, because, like, evolution and natural selection is just the process of changes compounding because they make you more suited to your environment. And we are still animals that still have an environment. So, like, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because there's not really a concept of what would happen if we don't do selection ourselves. Like, there's no way to avoid a selection unless you are just not selecting at all. Like, unless you're just randomly choosing people to make children with other random people. But at that point, you're still just selecting, but you're selecting for lottery, right? You're selecting for the lack of criteria. And I don't really know what would happen there. I guess there's, like, this weird question of, like, if you just entirely randomly selected people to reproduce, then, like, you would trend towards the most common traits, right? Because if a trait is the most common, and it's in a higher proportion of the population, then it has a higher proportion to be in the next population. Does that mean everyone would end up kind of being the same? Like, if you just let it run forever? Like, if you just entirely randomly had people reproducing forever, would they all eventually normalize to completely average traits? That's so weird. Okay. I'm missing so many messages because I'm just rambling about evolution. Hold on. They couldn't translate the two children's languages. Well, there they go. Good job, medieval kings, I guess. Yeah, there's superficial traits that we select for right now. Like, there's definitely superficial traits that we select for, like, appearance and stuff. But there's also deeper traits. Like, I think a lot of the time people select for intelligence, at least partially, which is probably good. But then, like, also our idea of intelligence is very flawed. You know, we have this very constrained idea of what it means to be smart, which isn't necessarily accurate or helpful. But we definitely are very selecting. Like, I'm not meaning to imply that right now we do not select. I'm just thinking about, like, what would happen if we genuinely didn't select, like if it was just completely random. Memes are the DNA of the soul. I know Dunbar's number. Yes. So, technologies can be viewed as organisms subject to the selection and evolution. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you can see technology as something that grows or dies, and its method of reproduction is being utilized. It's kind of symbiotic in that sense. There'll be some issues before the state of everyone becoming normalized, or like the same, I assume. Don't forget consanguinity. I don't actually know that word. Is that... Yeah, I'll need an explanation for that. You have random mutations when people are born, so I guess how similar everyone would be to each other would depend on that rate of mutation. Agreed, but from my understanding it's very small. Like, I could be wrong. I haven't done research. But I thought that generally, like, pure random mutations tend to be fairly insignificant until they're compounded over many, many millennia. Every phone evolving into an iPhone is the same shit as everything evolving into crabs. Please don't say that to me. I don't want to think about it. I miss my headphone jacks. Oh wow, we're actually really close to 800 followers. Yo. On Twitch. Subtle plug. I just saw that. That would be cool. No idea either, fair enough. Have I just given up on actually getting anything done this stream? I feel like I need to just start doing just chatting streams sometimes, because clearly I don't get programming done. Like, I need to be able to, like, just occasionally just camera only and just chat, you know? Because, like, it seems like that tends to be what happens sometimes. I don't know, would people still enjoy that? Like, if we were just, like, there was no pretenses of getting stuff done, we were just talking? Shameless self-promotion during your own stream, how dare. This message is kind of aimed at everyone here. Would me having a more comfy icon make you feel more comfy reading my message? Personally, I don't really think that the icon makes me feel more or less comfy. You feel like my streams are kind of just chatting streams? They started out a lot more serious. They were definitely a lot more development oriented when I had less of an audience, because I could actually get stuff done. But nowadays it's really hard because, like, you know, I turn away for 30 seconds and there's like 5 more messages. And don't get me wrong, I really like that. I like chatting to everyone. But it's like, it makes it very difficult to actually do programming. You still explained a lot of tech stuff? Yeah, fair enough. Consanguinity is where you shouldn't make children with siblings. Oh, okay, yeah. In terms of DNA, things will go to hell for the next generation since the genetic material will be used, and at a point where your copy of copy is crap is a photo of your photo. But if you just have everyone, like, if you had everyone reproduce with completely random people, the potential for them to reproduce with, like, someone who is genetically similar to them is pretty low. Like, there's a lot of humans, right? Like, I don't think that would particularly be... I guess that would be an issue if everyone normalized to, like, the exact same traits, because then genetic diversity would die, but that's kind of, like, a consequence rather than a blocker. Like, I'm mostly just thinking about, like, what the fuck would happen, right? And that, you're correct, that is something that would happen. But it's interesting to think that it could get to the point where that could happen at all, just through, like, random regression, I guess. I like you typing about something and talking about cool programming 3D voxel things. Just saying octree float in C++ activates the right neurons. Octree float C++. I'm just gonna record myself saying those words, and I'm going to just play them back in the background. I'm gonna get rid of the Cobalt Core music, and I'm just gonna make it me chanting octree float in C++. Normalizing would require constant or decreasing population size. I don't think so. Like, if you have a random system, and let's say that, like, assume 60% of people have the same express trait. Actually, let's use a basic one, brown eyes. I think most people have brown eyes, right? It's like the majority, technically. If most people have brown eyes, and brown eyes is not a regressive trait, or a recessive, sorry, not regressive, and then you just, for a bajillion years, you just have people entirely randomly reproducing. Then wouldn't it be that over time the proportion of people with brown eyes would overtake everyone else, and then there'd be only brown eyes? Because, like, every generation, if there's 60% of people that have brown eyes, then, and let's say it's a dominant trait, then anytime one person with brown eyes makes a baby with someone else, then the child has brown eyes, and because their proportion of brown eyes is higher than 50%, now the new generation has more brown eyes in it than the first one, right? Like, I think that's how it works. I'm not very good at statistics. I took the statistics courses like 4 years ago, and I saw Poisson distribution, and my brain hurt. If you simulate reality for like super, super, super long, every trait can be eliminated. Yeah, that's kind of my impression, right? Is like, if you were just to continually cycle the same random selection over and over and over and over and over again, then the common random traits would become, like, would overpower all uncommon ones. Or I guess, more specifically, the dominant traits would, because it doesn't really matter how common it is, it simply matters how the proportion changes between generations. And if a trait is going to happen regardless of which parent has it, then if it's random, then it will eventually propagate, right? I also heard that 5 years ago the Y chromosome of men was in a decline, and maybe in the far future we'd all just have women. Well, I mean, that's kind of funny. I don't really have any words for that, other than just it's kind of funny. Apparently we have a roughly even split of dominant and recessive alleles. Huh. I'm not sure how that would affect the probabilities. Reality's been around for a while and there's still people with blue eyes and such. But that's implying that... I guess it's a bit insane to imply that there's like... No, but there definitely are people that are like, oh, I like blue eyes. I want to be with someone that has blue eyes, or green eyes, or whatever eyes. But I guess you're right, like, over the course of a population, you could argue that it trends out to just random anyways. These questions are all too confusing. I got nothing. And then you go, I simulated the genetics of flowers to figure out if in 1 trillion years we'll all be women. Imagine having eye color as a green flag. But some people are like that. Some people are genuinely like that. Like, they'll have some entirely insubstantial physical characteristic, and they'll be like, that's it for me. Like, that's what I need. I don't know. I mean, like, people can do what they want. It's fine. It's just very interesting to me. There's a natural trend for people to find rare traits attractive. So yeah, I guess that kind of like, that could balance out the random chance. Like, if you have less common eye colors, then perhaps over the course of a population, you are more likely, like the people with less common eye colors are more likely to reproduce because people like the fact that they have less common eye colors, even if just subconsciously, right? Like, I feel like it might be a little bit short-sighted to imply that it is just random over the course of a population, but who knows? Social conditioning just ruined our perceptions. What am I doing? I'm not writing any words on my computer. I don't even know where to start. Oof. Okay, I will, yeah. Does your engine run at a fixed resolution? Have you thought about at what distance voxels are smaller than pixels? Yes, I have. So right now everything is at a fixed resolution, but the goal is to have level of detail chunks where in the distance chunks are larger and represent more blocks in a single voxel. I've already got a low resolution render mode where the blocks are all cubic so that they can be more easily 3D meshed and stuff. It's just not active right now. But the idea is that chunks in the distance should simplify to the point where they are, like, the blocks are much larger. Because yes, it's both good for performance because you can't see the detail that far away, and it removes a lot of undesirable artifacting, like the kind of moire effect when you move your cursor. And it also gets rid of the issue where you're painting quads that are less than a pixel wide and then they end up like wasting a bunch of GPU energy. So there's a lot of reasons to do level of detail, and it is something I'm actively considering. Whoa, that just like hard reset my brain back to talking about code. We've been talking about evolution for the past hour. Okay. I need to like think like a normal person again. Okay. Yeah, but right now we're working on the structure system. And honestly, I think mainly the reason I haven't been touching it this stream is because I realized that I'm not sure I like the API. Like, having to load all of the structures into an atlas feels very wrong to me. I'm still trying to work through it in my head. Like, so obviously, like, most blocks and stuff are in an atlas. So, like, all these blocks are within an atlas where they each have a unique integer ID and a unique string identifier and all of that shit, right? But the structures are weird because I don't like the idea of allowing you to use identifiers. Because identifiers are unique. And that could potentially make it annoying to add on to stuff. Like, so for example, here's a hypothetical. You're making a game in this engine, and you want to make it so that whenever, like in this biome, there is a 1 in 1,000 chance to generate a fountain, and the fountain is identified by, let's say, Zeus default fountain. It's part of Zeus, it's in the default mod, and it's called fountain. And you set up the biome so that its decorations list can include that fountain. Now, let's say you're a modder, and you want to make it so that instead of just having one fountain, you're making like a more structure variance mod, and you make 4 more fountains, and you want the same probability of generating a fountain, but you want it to randomly select between the vanilla one and your 4 other variants. You can't do that if it's keyed to just the identifier, because identifiers are unique. You can't make another Zeus default fountain. You can make a RE extra structures fountain 1, but that's not the same identifier, and so the source mod, the one that like I created that creates the Zeus fountain, isn't looking for it. Which is why initially structures had a name key, which made them non-unique, because that meant that, like, if I call it Zeus fountain, you can also make a Zeus fountain, and now there's 2 Zeus fountains, and the name refers to both, right? And so my issue is that, like, if I have these unique identifiers, then you can't do that. But maybe that's speaking to a problem in itself, right? Like, maybe I shouldn't be worrying about this. Well, I could just use tags, and I do have a tag system. And you are going to be able to specify, like, I could create Zeus default fountain and have it have the fountain tag, and then my code could say, oh, just generate something with the fountain tag. But the problem is now the onus is on the original creator to support more fountains, as opposed to the person implementing more fountains. Like, if I just never thought about the fact that people might want to add more fountain variants, and then someone else wants to go in and add more fountains, if I didn't make it based on the tag, and I instead made it based on the identifier, then the mod creator can't add more fountains, right? Whereas if it's a non-unique name, then they can add more fountains by just adding the same name, right? So, my thought that I'm having right now is just don't expose the UIDs to the API. So you're saying internally get them unique identifiers, but don't actually have, but don't have them be something you set or read. I could do that. Because you have 2 dimensions of identifier, like the fountain has the fountain ID and a variant number, so people can add a variant to an existing ID. I could, but that's effectively just rewriting the tag system, but making it mandatory. Like, that's effectively just making it so that it's tag only, right? Which is viable. Like, I could do that. And maybe that's not even a bad idea. Like, Also, welcome back, Dawson. Yeah, so... Okay. Hear me out. What if you're right? What if we just don't have you specify an identifier? What if it is tags only, And when you register a structure, you get back a structure object, just like all the blocks, like you get back a block object. And then within that object, you can catch the numeric ID. So all things in registries in this engine have both a string ID, which is stable across reloads, and a numeric ID, which is not. So when you register blocks, they have their, oh, this is Zeus default grass 5, right? But they also have a number, which might be 100, it might be 200, it might be 5, and that's entirely dependent on just what mods are loaded in what order. And it's stable for one runtime of the game, but not stable overall. So it's a unique identifier for disambiguation purposes, but it's not like it's gotten called something, right? But if I just let you use tags, right? If I just let you use tags, and then there's no unique identifiers, but it still creates a numeric ID, then you can still disambiguate specifically what structure it is. So it wouldn't be strictly internal. It would be generated internally, and it wouldn't be used for identifying what structures you want another structure to attach to, but it would be used if you wanted to, like, load a specific structure. Like, let's say that, like, you specifically wanted to check if two structures are the same, right? Then you could just check if their UIDs are the same. Or if you wanted to pull a specific structure out of the structures atlas from an index, you could take that index. It just wouldn't have a persistent ID, right? And I think that would work. And, like, the weird thing is that technically I don't even need to change anything about my atlas definition. I can just make the identifier that it requests, because, like, the atlas currently wants an identifier, right? And it's supposed to be a string. I can just make the identifier a stringified number, which is the same as its numeric ID. Tags are similar to components, so it sounds right. Yeah, also, welcome back, Smarty. We were just talking about how to make the structures registry work without having issues where you can't extend existing structure definitions. So tags, yeah, so tags are similar to components. And we could use the tags. Yeah, I like this. I like this idea of just not having you specify an identifier for structures. So it doesn't have a name, it doesn't have an identifier, it just has effectively the tags. And if you want to be very specific about it, say, like, again, I'm making my mod, and I want to put fountains in this environment, then I can just make a tag called Zeus default fountain. It's in the namespace syntax, which means that it's not going to overlap with anyone else. Like, no other mod, unless they're specifically trying to also be a Zeus fountain, is going to call themselves Zeus default fountain. Like, by default, I've created a strong name that isn't going to overlap with any other names accidentally. But because it's a tag and it's not actually unique, anyone can still go and add another Zeus default fountain if they wanted to extend the number of fountains. And if they really wanted to, like, let's say, well, here's another hypothetical. We make a new mod that, like, enhances the existing structures by replacing them. Let's say that we don't want the default fountain from Zeus to spawn. We only want new fountains. They can always go into the decorations atlas, which is the atlas that defines what structures generate at mapgen, and they can always just go and, like, delete the default fountain definition and then create a new one for themselves, right? Like, there's nothing stopping them from doing that as well. It's just kind of messier. But this handles the common case well, and it still allows you to handle the weird case where you want to delete a structure and replace it. So I think this is good. If only there were namespaces. We do have namespaces. I'm just trying to figure out how to make non-unique identifiers within them in a way that makes sense. How do you start using a different keyboard layout? I've heard they're cool, and I saw you having a cool villain keyboard. This is my, oh fuck, hold on, let me turn it to actual camera mode so I can. This is a cool villain keyboard. I mean, I like it. I don't know if villain's the right word, but I don't know. I'm pretty evil, so I could see that being appropriate. Camera moment, yes. So The reason that I swapped to a different keyboard layout in the first place was because I was getting some really, really bad RSI. And I'm also relatively young, and so that was freaking me out, you know? Like, if I was getting RSI, I think I was, like, 19, and I was having really bad RSI from typing all day. And I was like, well, okay, I need to make some life changes if I want to have a career of programming, right? And so I decided to take the plunge on a new keyboard like this because they're a lot more ergonomic. And at the same time, I also swapped to Dvorak because I figured there was going to be a learning moment from having a new keyboard shape, no matter what. And if I was going to do that, then I may as well go all the way to not have to learn twice in a row, right? And so I ended up swapping to Dvorak and getting a keyboard that was this shape at the exact same time, and it was a horrible learning curve. I typed at like 4 words per minute for like 2 weeks because I kept accidentally hitting QWERTY keys, you know? And like it just felt like I was fighting against my own nature. Like, I always feel a bit weird saying this because I obviously have never had a stroke, but it felt like what I imagine it would feel like if I had had a stroke. Like I was sitting there and my brain knew what I was doing was right. Like when I was typing the QWERTY things, like it knew that I was doing what I was supposed to, but at the same time it just wasn't working. It was like I'd type and I'd be entirely confident and then it would just be gibberish. And it felt like my like brain was betraying me. What exactly is RSI? It's repetitive strain injury. It's basically when your joints get really in pain from doing the same repetitive motions. And so eventually, but like after like 3 weeks of using Dvorak on this new keyboard and just being absolutely awful, like I was training every day, but I was still really bad. It's like suddenly I woke up one day and my brain had just like ingested the information and it just flipped. And now I was in Dvorak mode and I actually couldn't type in QWERTY anymore, which was awkward for a few days. But then I practiced on QWERTY again at the same time and I got to the point where I could use both. So that was fine. But like, it's weird because it feels like I wasn't making progress for this whole time, right? But it was really just my brain struggling to internalize the shift, right? And the moment that my brain realized, okay, this is what we're doing now, all of the skill I already had with typing translated. It's just there was like a huge learning curve to remapping those actual physical actions to the new layout. What kind of advantage do you feel versus QWERTY? Well, I mean, Dvorak is generally just more ergonomic. I have to move my fingers from the home row a lot less. That's definitely enhanced by the weird keyboard layout I have, because it's ortholinear, which means the keys are in actual columns, as opposed to like being offset, like in regular keyboards. But in general, I just feel far less pain in my hands. Like, I, most of the time, go a full day without my hands hurting, which was not the case back when I was using a regular QWERTY keyboard. I wouldn't say, like, there's a lot of people that talk about Dvorak like it just makes you magically way faster. I don't think that's true. Like, I am faster now. Like, if I pull up Monkey Type, I can do a little typing speed test really quick to demonstrate. I hope I don't embarrass myself live on air, but we'll see. Why is it taking so long? Alright, let's try this. Let's go words 50. Ah, shit. Shit. That was pretty shit. I'm gonna be honest. That was really bad. Oh shit, I am cam only right now. Okay, I've been saved from my embarrassment. Alright, let's try this again. Alright. Hold on. Let me try this again. Here. There we go. That was a good one. Yeah, like I can type really quickly now, but it's not that much faster than I could back when I was doing, you know, QWERTY. It's a lot less painful, so it feels a lot nicer. But yeah, I don't know. I guess, like, I wouldn't necessarily encourage people to just switch their keyboard layout on a whim. But if you're finding that your hands are hurting, I'd say do it proactively. Don't, like, sit around on that, because it's not good to let that build up. Back to programming, please. Fair enough. Yeah, just let me, catch up on chat. Okay, good. We're good. Alright, yeah, so, your brain was sleeping. Which keyboard do I have? I have the ZSA Moonlander. I guess I still have an ErgoDox Easy, also by ZSA, but I bought the Moonlander for work and then I quit my job, and so now I have two, and I've been using the Moonlander because it's nicer. Moonlander, yes, I really like the Moonlander. I know there's theoretically more optimal layout, or like keyboards out there, like the dactyls, you know, they seem really cool with how they curve in, but like, I also just like the easy configurability of this one, and I like that I don't have to make it myself. Like, I think physical tech is cool, I don't want to make it, and I like that this just exists and works nice and has an easy configurer and everything. Okay, last keyboard topic, I promise. Someone asked how I type the arrow keys on here. I will pull up my layout. This is my layout. Up and down are here, left and right are here. I use my thumbs on these, this cluster, like here and here. And when I want to press the arrows, I move my thumb from here to here, so I can keep all my fingers on the home row, but then I can also arrow key. Moonlander looks amazing. I feel like I should try one of these. I can feel carpal tunnel creeping in. There might be some budget option to try. Yeah, the Moonlander is a little bit pricey. I think it's like 500 Canadian dollars, which is awful. But I don't know, if you work as a programmer, you might be able to get it as a work thing. That's what I did for this one. And it's well worth it if you're feeling pain. Like, it sucks to pay for something because your body doesn't like you, but like, if it's so much, like, it's worth it to not have to deal with that. Did I swap arrows? No, they've always been like that. Okay. Whew. You shouldn't hear me typing at 50 to 60-ish words per minute and think I'm fine. I actually think that typing slower is perfectly fine for programming. It mainly constrains you, in my opinion, when you're writing. Like, I don't just program, I also like writing. I do I write fiction. And I find, like, even with my typing speed, I can't type fast enough for my brain when I'm, like, typing stories and stuff. Whereas with programming, there's a lot more contemplation going on, you know? Like, there's a lot more of me staring at words and trying to figure out what the hell am I doing? And that is a lot easier to do if you're typing slower, right? But also, 50 to 60 is relatively fast. Like, I think that's average. So that's pretty good. Sometimes wrist bones will shift out of place. Interesting. I don't have enough of a knowledge of anatomy to know what that implies, but... Okay. You bought a Moonlander and you like it? Yeah, I think it's a really good keyboard. I immediately threw out the base switches it came with, though. I don't like any of the vanilla switches that ZSA has on offer. I generally just think cherries are awful. What switches am I using? I don't actually know which ones are in this keyboard. I was given them by a friend because my existing switches were pissing me off and I don't have the box. But the key switches that I will swear by that I have on my other keyboard that I really like are Boba U4Ts. I really like Boba U4Ts. They just feel really nice and they're very plonky. And they're low resistance if you get the low resistance variants. Oh no, you saw the streaming strain. Shit, okay. I'm not as good at hiding that as I thought. Yeah. I am definitely getting a little bit sleepy here. Or not sleepy, but like drained from talking. It was interesting. I thought I would only get this sort of like throat strain from streaming, but I had to do like a big work presentation on the stuff that I had done over the last month because I was quitting, right? And I had to basically be like, okay, here's all the shit I've done, so you know how it works. And I had to talk for like 3 hours straight for that. And that felt the exact same, like I had the exact same strain. And then I had to go do a presentation later that night for another hour and a half. And I was just like, oh my god, I feel like I'm dying. Probably the jingly ears. I don't think it's the jingly ears, but, you know. For programming, I don't get anywhere near that speed, only if I'm offhandedly typing something. Have you tried stenotype keyboards for writing to keep up with your brain as you think things out? I haven't. That's like the kind of like shorthand that lawyers use, right? Or I guess not lawyers, but the people that are in courts that record things. I do the worst of both worlds. For writing, I first start the page for 10 minutes and then start cranking out words. Yeah, I'm a lot more just kind of like, I'll start like stream of consciousness thinking and then I'll go back and edit it 50 times. I don't know if that's better or worse, but it does create a more even distribution of typing and thinking. For keyboard layout, I still don't know what I want because I'm French and Azerty is not that bad as QWERTY. I don't know. I've never had to type French, so I don't really know what the usage of that is like. Yeah, a chain of thought. That's, I guess that's not very surprising given my streams. I kind of just ramble, even on the page, and then I go back and clean it up. Yeah, the trees are cut off just because they're at the border of the chunks, and then, they don't currently flow over, which is unfortunate. Well, now for me, it's 2 a.m., so I think I'll go to sleep. I hope you have good work today. Thank you very much. See you around. Hey Aurelius, I'm from the Delver Discord, and I want to know both what the project you're making and what engine it is. Yeah, hi, welcome. This is Zephyr. It's my Voxel engine. I'm making it from scratch, so it's raw Vulkan, and I'm integrating the V8 library, which Google makes for running JavaScript, for running ModScript. So the idea is that it's an engine, but all of the actual content is defined in sandboxed scripting. The goal is to make a very general and powerful voxel engine. I want to be able to represent basically any sort of voxel project in here and have it be safe and downloadable over the air. So like, I really like the idea of being able to join a server and then just have all of the content related to playing on the server, all of the code, all of the blocks, all of the textures, just be able to stream to you on connection. And then you just have a complete game that you just downloaded. Effectively like just a variant of the web, but for like voxel games. And then specifically the project I'm making in it is I'm making a sci-fi sandbox adventure. This is like super early in development, so you're not going to see much of it on screen, but I'm making a sci-fi sandbox where you end up crash-landed on an alien planet that is full of derelict ancient technology that allows you to shapeshift into the different fauna on the environment to, or on the planet to be able to conquer your environment and progress. I think that's a decent elevator pitch. I'm not too used to it. Roblox Minecraft. No, don't call it that. Please don't call it Roblox Minecraft. This game is sci-fi? Yeah. I mean, like, there's not much game yet, so there's not much going on. But the goal is that I definitely want to make a very sci-fi adventure. I feel very influenced by Subnautica. I absolutely love that game's vibes. This is not underwater, but I want it to have similar you're on an alien planet that wants to fuck you up energy. The tree cutoff, I take it, then you don't use any sort of multi-pass generation or hashing for the foliage. So I imagine you could always jitter the location to ensure a tree stays within the chunk bounds if you don't want to go through those approaches to do single pass as fast as possible. So basically, I'm sorry, I'm struggling to figure out what I want to say to that. Okay, so it is single pass right now, and it is cut off. I could just constrain the structures to only generate if they exist within the chunk bounds, but that would create weird situations where if you had like a forest of trees, you'd have lines through the forest where no trees generated because they're on chunk bounds. My actual plan is that each thread generates the world in a 4x4x4 chunk region right now, which is 128 blocks across. And my goal is basically to allow it so that structures can bleed out of their chunk one extra chunk in each positive direction, so positive X, Y, and Z. And then those blocks don't actually get saved anywhere. Like they're able to be placed there, but they don't actually get saved to the world. But then when the neighboring world generates, it will check in the negative directions one chunk in each axis, so negative X, Y, and Z, and see if there are any structures that would have been placed there that would bleed over, and then it would generate those pieces inside of those chunks. So basically it allows structures to bleed over the generation boundaries by one chunk, which should mean that there are always structures that can span the chunk boundaries without looking weird. How do you stay with a project for this long? I sadly have difficulties with that. I, for the most part, am really bad at sticking with things. This has basically just been my dream project, though, for my entire life. Like, this was the reason I started learning to program in the first place. So, for better or for worse, this is the one project that I'm able to stick with. And I've stuck with it for about 6 years now, which is kind of horrifying to think about. You know, if I was done today, then I'd be able to make about 10 of these in my life, which is terrifying, not only because 10's a really small number, but also because I'm nowhere near done. But, you know, I don't think I'm ever going to make something to this scope again. This is just something, like, it's my masterwork. It's something that I feel like I have to complete to be satisfied with my life, so I guess that's why I'm able to stick with it. Yes, I will stick with our project too. There's a reason for that. And also, there's a lot less time that needs to be invested into it. If we are not released, if Stardust Frontier has not been released in 6 years, we've done something deeply wrong. For context, Intix is my business partner right now. We started a company. We got it all official last week. I quit my job. We have investment capital. We're actually working on creating a commercial game project that's hopefully going to be released at the end of this year. So I'm very excited about that. Just don't switch languages 4 times. So far I've resisted, outside of changing the scripting language, but I haven't changed the actual engine language, thankfully. I almost did, and then I had restrained. I like the idea. It gave me a huge mix of Minecraft, Prototype, and Starbound. Early's an understatement, but I can see it's got great potential. I have not seen Prototype, but I have seen Starbound and Minecraft, and they are definitely obvious inspirations, yeah. But thank you. If you go through that method, how would you support something that can pass multiple bounds, or is that not going to be anything large enough to do that? I haven't decided. It's an active potential issue. It could be something that I solve by allowing large structures to be scanned at a greater distance. But I haven't figured that out yet. I'm still working through it. You're still young, kind of early to say what's going to be your masterwork. Fair enough. I mean, maybe I'll make something better, but this is what I've wanted to make for the past 11 years, so hopefully it works out. But imagine creating 10 super cool games and making people happy with your streams. I would be happy if I could do that for people. That is very fair. I mean, like, it can be almost deceptive at times, because I like the art of creating. Like, I love just working on this engine and fucking around with it, but that also doesn't create a thing that other people can use. And so I'm always very cautious about getting too absorbed in simply just liking the process, because I want to make sure that I also create something in the end that people can actually see. But no, I don't mean to imply that I'm not satisfied with my life where it is. It's more so just that I need to make this real, otherwise, like, if I die without this being a real project, I will be very dissatisfied, you know? Like, is this something, I guess it's better to say it's on my bucket list, you know? It needs to get done. How large do trees get if we remove the cap? Right now, trees are just a single static structure that's being generated, so exactly as large as you see. But the structure system supports basically dynamically creating structures from a bunch of like attachments. That was what I was supposed to be programming today, and then I got really caught up trying to figure out how I was going to design it. But the idea is that it can basically just dynamically continue to place new pieces and like jigsaw create a tree. And if we didn't have any constraints, then I don't know, technically infinitely. Like right now with the structure system, it would cap out at 150 blocks because it would reach the edge of the generation region. But that's potentially not something that I want to have. Like, I might try and fix that so then we don't have to worry about that. I was actually, in that video that I was reading or listening to, where they were talking about treating structure generation as like a gather operation as opposed to a scatter one, where like you basically scan the outer chunks of the region to see if there's structures that could possibly intersect. They actually did a very interesting thing where they cached the recent chunks that were generated in the individual threads, just as like an optimistic improvement, where like if that's done and like you try to find if structures outside of the current chunk should bleed into it, and you already have it cached, then you don't have to recompute, you just know, right? So I might do something like that and allow it to be even larger. To-do, this is awful, no. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Let's look at the to-dos in this code base. To-do should not be here. To-do, this code does not clean up. To-do, don't do this. To-do, these are getting copied, uh-oh. Oh, that's, okay. To-do, there's a lot of dry here. To-do, this is awful. To-do, this is awful. To-do, this is scuffed. To-do, wait, what the fuck is this? Okay. To-do, magic number bad. Yeah, there's a lot of to-dos. Gotta ask, when did you start working on Zephyr? I need to know how behind I am. I started working on it in 2018. November 2018. If you die before making Zephyr, you will become a very angry poltergeist. Yep. So the noise functions are mutable operations, I presume. Which noise options specifically? Like, are you referring to, like, the map gen? Because, yes, it does mutate the same data. It's not, like, copying the data every time it does a step. I meant, how old were you? Oh, okay. I think I turned 17, like, a week after I started. I think. Yes. No, I turned 17 a week after I started. That's right. Which meant it might have been 2019? I don't know. Time is hard. But I was 17. Is it too early to ask about biome blending and multiple planet generations? So I'll keep it for later. Gotta go now, best of luck. Thank you very much. Yeah, I stream every Sunday at noon if you're interested in catching another one. But yeah, see you around. You're thinking about why they need memory accesses. Why do they need memory accesses? Are you talking about what I was saying with the caching? That's just an optimization. Just like, you know, if I know what the neighboring chunk looks like already, I don't have to regenerate it to check if there should be structures that bleed over, right? Ideally, the generation would be a pure function, but that's very idealistic. I mean, it effectively is if you, like, were to domain model it, but there's a lot of nasty, messy stuff to make it cleaner, or not cleaner, but faster. That makes it a lot less clean. Oh no, I'm 19 and already behind. Just make fun little Godot things. Don't worry about age. Age is like, it's so easy to look at people that are like, they did something earlier and then feel like you can never catch up. Like, it's crazy. You know, I've been messing around with this YouTube thing, and I've seen a little bit of success with making a video or two. And I recently was watching a content creator that I watch, and she just dropped that she was 21. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like, I'm already 2 years older than that. That's insane. And she has, like, millions of subscribers. But, like, the thing is, like, it didn't take her 21 years to get there. She started some years ago, and now she's there now, right? It's not like every year that I didn't do YouTube is another year that I would need to do YouTube to do YouTube well, right? Like, it's not like people come out of the womb and then are just immediately developing towards whatever they're doing. Like, people do spend a lot of time on it. But, like, starting something when you're 17 versus starting something when you're 27 doesn't really make a difference functionally. Like, sure, you start it later. It's still going to take you the same amount of time to do, and if you're enjoying doing it, then that's fine, right? Like, unless it takes you 80 years, then it's not like you've got any, like, mortality problems to worry about. So, I don't know. I just think, like, it's better to not stress about those sorts of things. By the way, I'm curious, what are the specs of your computer? Everything runs so nicely using an old laptop, and I'm wondering if it's my code or if I really need to upgrade. I need to post those somewhere, but I'm running a 3060, NVIDIA 3060. I have a i7 10th gen. I have 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and I have some crucial solid-state drives. How far is this project from release or beta? So, it's always a difficult question to answer because it really depends on how much time I have. And I tend to estimate, like, oh, how long would it take me to do this thing if I just worked on it nonstop? And then that never happens because life is super fucking busy. So I guess I'll hazard a guess and say that I think the engine would be ready for an alpha release where people could mess with the engine, not the game, just the engine, in a year of full-time development. But I don't know when I'm gonna get a year of full-time development, you know? Like, if this project that I have going right now that's supposed to release at the end of December goes well, and we make a bunch of money, then maybe I can fund a year of full-time development on it. Or maybe I can't, and, like, you know, I'm spending all of my time doing another project to make money. It's like, it's very difficult to estimate, and you know, things used to be so very simple back when I was in high school, and all I had to do was just go to class, right? But, like, life is a lot more complicated than that now, and it makes it very hard to know how long something's actually going to take in real time. So the best I can answer is that's how long it'll take in ideal conditions, is a year. And we'll see what happens. Probably not this year, though. There's far too much already booked up for this year, so we'll see. Any plan for scriptable structures, i.e. a structure that is a script that generates a chunk diff or something, so you can have a tree structure that generates a unique tree for every generation? Kind of, yeah. I'm considering having the ability for you to run script on the mapgen threads, but it'll be a very constrained system, and it's probably not encouraged. I would prefer if people use the structure attachment system, because it can also create unique random things, and it's a lot easier to optimize than running JavaScript on the mapgen threads. But yeah, technically it's probably going to be possible. It's just definitely not something that's encouraged. How long have you been working on the engine? I've been working on it since... Damn, I really need to know the year. When was the first commit? Is there a good way to see the first commit of something in GitHub? Like, can you log from the start somehow? Like, git log get oldest. Git log dash dash reverse. Okay, let's see. Looks like I started November 2018. How do you plan to make money with this? Selling the game or the engine itself? I plan on selling the game as a product. And then to the end user, the engine will be treated more like it's mods for the game. So the game will be the thing you buy. And it will also include a content database that can either have mods for existing games, like the one I published, or entire games that you can download that were made by other people that you can swap to in the menu. I actually don't plan on this being the only voxel game I ever make in this engine. If I did, it'd be very stupid, because I've spent far too long on it for just that. So the idea is that, like, if I'm making first-party games, they'd be independent products that I sell, but they would all have the same content database. So, like, if you publish a game on the content database for, like, Zeus, which is one of the games I want to make, and then you, like, someone goes and buys a different game in the same engine, they can download your game on that as well and use it, basically. So it's kind of just like wrapping a pre-built game around the engine and selling that as a single product. But yeah, I feel it's painfully obvious that I haven't really been writing words for a while now. As Smarty pointed out like half an hour ago, I did my getting tired mannerisms. I'm feeling pretty exhausted. But, yeah, I think I will probably wrap up here, and I'll probably go to, like, just depart to my Discord server. So, yeah, I think, if anyone has any questions, let me know. I'll sit around for a couple minutes here, and answer any questions that you have. But other than that, thank you for showing up to the stream, everyone. I stream every Sunday at noon PST. I put announcements in my Discord server. The link is on screen. It's arail.us/discord. Yeah, please do come back next time. I always enjoy chatting with people. I saw quite a few new faces here that I haven't seen beforehand, which is always very nice. It's cool to have people show up. I promise I will aspire to actually get more done next stream. This was definitely a lower productivity one overall, but, you know, I mean, it is what it is. I had fun. But yeah, I will sit here for a second or two if people have questions. But yeah, alright. See you all around, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you next week. Bye, all.